Welcome to another edition of Seekers of the Supernatural. I'm your moderator, Tony Spera. Tonight, along with Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren, your hosts. Tonight, we're going to speak about a show that I'll bet you everybody in the audience, bar none, knows about. It's a show about a place in Long Island. Amityville, Long Island. Probably the most famous case ever investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren. And you know, to this day, we have people come up to Ed, to Lorraine, and ask them if Amityville was a hoax. They'll come up and say things like, I knew someone who was in that house. That was a hoax. There's no such thing as ghosts at Amityville. I got to tell you, I know it was not a hoax. Ed Warren will tell you, Lorraine will tell you, that that house was one of the most haunted locations in all of America back in 1974-75. So, with that, I think we'll start the program by asking Ed and Lorraine how they started out with Amityville, how they got involved. So, Ed, can you please tell us how you got involved the first instance?
Yeah. Well, of course, we were called by Marvin Scott, who was the anchorman for Channel 5 at the time. But we had met Marvin about a year earlier at a haunted church in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And he was impressed by our investigation, and we had not heard about the killings in Amityville because Lorraine and I were out of the country at the time. And when he asked us to go there because 6 members of a family were murdered, and then a little over a year later, another family moved in. And this family fled the house after 28 days. Well, of course, this interested both of us. So we went to the Amityville home. We met Marvin Scott with a camera crew. And we were supposed to meet George Lutz, who was going to let us in the house. But George wasn't there. And he made a phone call. And George Lutz said, the closest I'll come to that house is 4 blocks away. I'll give you the keys at a pizza parlor nearby. Well, we went there. We met George. He gave us the keys. And I'll never forget it. He was sitting as close to me as you are. And I said, remember now, this is the first time I've ever seen the guy. Mr. Lutz, what happened to you in that house? Because I really didn't know what happened. And he just looked at me and he said, you know, just like that. I said, no, I don't know. And I said, what happened to you in the house that you were so frightened that your family and yourself fled out of there?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
That's all
now I was
he
getting a
kept
little
saying.
sick of this. I said, I don't know. I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not a medium. I'm an investigator. And I thought to myself, this guy doesn't even want to talk about it. Is he that scared of it? Well, I found out that he was afraid to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to give it recognition.
Right.
Well, we took the keys. We went to the house. Now, as I just said, I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not a sensitive. But when I opened up that door and walked in that house, it reeked of death. Not just because of the 6 people who were murdered, the Defeos, mother, father, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers. And this all occurred on November 13th, 1974, at 3:15 in the morning. Every member of the family was found shot to death, all lying on their stomach, Tony. Now, we'll get into that during the program, but that in itself was unnatural. The police had felt they were drugged. They were not drugged, and they found that out during the autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
We walked into that house, and it's my custom, Tony, to go down into the cellar, the lowest part of the house. These are usually the darkest areas. This is where evil thrives. This is where it survives. It hates God's light. It hates the sunlight. It hates any kind of light. So while Lorraine was walking up the stairs with the camera crew, I went down into the cellar. It was a huge place. We'll show pictures of it later. And as is my custom as a religious demonologist, I took out a crucifix, I held it up, and I commanded in the name of Jesus Christ and the blood of Christ what was there to reveal itself. It wasted no time. I never had such a quick reaction, Tony. I felt as though I was underneath a waterfall. That's how terrific the pressure was on my head and shoulders, forcing me down to the floor. Then I felt what I can only describe as hundreds of pinpoints of electricity hitting my body. and as though somebody had taken a hot towel and dropped it over my face. I couldn't breathe. I knew what was happening immediately. I felt it before, but not to that extent.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately went into what we call religious resistance, which means that I again commanded in the name of Jesus Christ, the blood of Christ, what was there, to leave and go back to where it came from. Immediately it lifted off. I went up the stairs to where Lorraine and the camera crew were, and she'll tell you what she felt there.
Well, now I had no way of knowing, Tony, since I was they asked me to go up onto the next floor.
Mm-hmm.
I had just left walking all around on the first floor. And it's in that one room, that wet bar room, the room that you see on the very front of the house, that I stood and could see all of these bodies all lined up.
Mm-hmm. Clear visually.
Clear visually, I could see that. That's where the defëos were prior to being taken out, you know, to the morgue. And that was horribly disturbing. And I remember I took that relic, a Padre Pio, which no camera person knew I had, and I cupped it in my hands, and I prayed, you know, to him.
Right.
Now that is the room where the image of him, Padre Pio, it was picked up on film.
We probably have a slide of this.
Yeah, we're going to have a slide of it, Tom. Now at this point, I'm still on camera, so I'm not looking. I just think Ed is with me, that he is somehow behind the cameras and that he is there. And I start to go up the stairs. Mm-hmm. Never did I know that he went downstairs. I did not know that. I started to go up to the first landing where the great big window is. And as I did, it felt as if I was standing right under onrushing water. And it bothers you. It's a pressure that's on your body to such a great extent.
What happens is that the atmosphere actually solidifies in homes like this. It's like trying to penetrate a wall of cement, really.
So I got up, I made it up to that landing, and again, I cupped that relic of Padre Pio and asked for his help, his guidance, and made it up the rest of the way. When I got up to the top of the stairs, remember, I'd never been in this home. I knew nothing about anything about it, nothing about the history at all, Tony. It was just another haunted house, except that we were on camera. I went to the left and went in this room. That was the sewing room.
Right.
And in that room, I looked at Marvin Scott, and he told me just a year ago that he will never forget what I said to him, and that is, I hope this is as close to hell as I'll ever get.
Wow.
And in that room is where Father Pecoraro was told by an unseen voice to get out. It's the room where the hundreds of flies were killed. That's all.
He was also slapped in the face at that time.
Yes.
Which a lot of people don't know. They think that the voice was the only thing he heard. After he heard the voice, he felt a physical slap in the face. He told me this himself. He repeated it to reporters. It's on official file. There's no two ways about it. People have said, there never was a Father Pecoraro. And we couldn't even mention his name for the first 2 years until we got permission to do it. Now, a lot of people out there have heard the Amityville horror is a hoax. Why do you think that is? Because the atheists want you to think it's a hoax. They don't want anyone out there to believe for 1 second that a home like in Amityville could be haunted by diabolical forces, which it was. Their aim is to kill any belief that you have. Because if you believe that there's such a place as Amityville and a horror that was in that home, you might believe in a supernatural God. Right. They don't want that.
No.
You might believe in a devil. They don't want that either, because a skeptical public is the best protection that devils have. And devils do exist. Demons do exist. And 25 years ago, just like in Bridgeport, Connecticut, when we went in on the Lindley Street case, 966 Lindley, I offered a $3,000 reward to anybody, and I'm offering it again. Anybody out there that can come to me and prove The first person comes to me and proves that the case on Lindley Street was a hoax, I'll give them $3,000. Anybody that can come to me, the first one comes to me and proves that there was a hoax committed by the Latzes, ourselves, Prentice Hall, the priest, and anybody else in Amityville, I will give them $3,000. Nobody has ever come to collect that money because both of these cases were very genuine and both of them made international headlines. This is what the atheistic community hates. They don't want you people to believe out there that such things as devils exist. And even the church today is tight-lipped about what's going on. What's going on with the church? That's what I want to know.
Right. Now, I know we have some slides that we're going to set up, but while we're setting up the slides, Lorraine, and getting that all set, what was your sense in the house? How did you feel in that house during the investigation?
My immediate reaction, Tony, when I walked in was terrible depression. You're in a home where so many people had died violently. Then a young family had moved in and they fled, leaving everything. You look all over, Tony, and it's like you're in somebody's home that they just walked out of or going to the store and they're coming back. And it was just overwhelming feeling of depression.
Everything was intact.
Everything.
Clothing in the closets, the dishes, the pans, cookware, everything you could, just like you have in your home right now. They left it. They wouldn't take one thing because the priest told them not to take anything out of there with them.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, he told them not to take
I think the slides are almost ready. Now, if we can go to the slides, Ed, did you want to talk and tell us what we're seeing on the slides?
Yeah.
I think we're going to go to the first one now. As soon as we get to camera one, we'll, I think it's just going to be a slide of the...
Okay.
That's
that, of course, is a sign of Amityville. And Amityville means friendly village, you know.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Maybe that. And do you know what the latitude of that is?
No.
40.666.
Really?
40.666. Right
boy.
where the house is.
Oh.
Next. Okay, that's the house as it looked at the time of our investigation, of course. Now it's been changed around.
Oh, yes.
I guess the people, the guy that owns it doesn't want to be bothered, and I don't blame him, because there are vandals who create a lot of nuisance. But you see, where that car is parked, People magazine reporters also parked their car there. The Cromartie family, who bought the house after the Lutzes fled, from what I understand, there was a deal made with American International Pictures to sell that house for $250,000 to them so they could use it in a movie which was to be made. Well, of course, American International Pictures was not allowed to film there because of the town fathers or the neighbors, and they got stuck with a pig in a poke. And they claimed that it was a beautiful house. Nothing ever happened to that house. There was nothing but good feelings in there. How could you have good feelings in a house where 6 people were murdered
No, you couldn't.
and 5 people fled? How could you have good feelings? You couldn't.
No.
But they got into that car there, their car. It burst into flames. When they were walking around in the house, they could smell this foul odor. And they said to Mrs. Cromartie, "What's that stench that we smell?" "Oh, I dropped coffee on the rug about a week ago." You should never drink that kind of coffee, believe me.
No. What's the next slide we have, Ed?
What's
George and
That's it,
Kathy
there's
Lutz.
George
Now,
and
not too
Kathy.
many people have seen photographs of George and Kathy. You look at that guy. Does he look like the kind of a guy that would run away from nothing? Does he look like some kind of a wimp? No, he does not. And this man and his wife had spent all of their down payment that they got from Kathy's home that she sold and money he had from his business, put it into that house. 28 days later, they're going to flee that and leave everything behind with all their earthly belongings?
no, that's-
This guy was an ex-Marine. He was a black belt in karate. He hung around with motorcycle gangs. Hey, this guy doesn't run easy,
He
believe
doesn't
me.
scare easily.
No way.
he doesn't scare easily.
There's George, happier
That's-
days when they first moved in. They bought the house, you know, on the Amityville River for $50,000.
Pretty good price.
That was
Actually,
some buy.
was that a lot of money back then, though?
It had a pool.
Oh, that, yes.
It was?
No.
It wasn't a lot.
No, you mean this, to buy a house on the river? Oh, no, Tony.
Probably should have been more.
Who would
Oh,
buy a
sure.
house? Who, except George said, When the dead are dead, that's it. They don't bother you.
I mean, it was a lot of money, Tony, but it
But not
wasn't enough for
absorbing it.
that house.
Yeah, because
no.
it had everything.
George was an atheist, you know.
Yeah.
Today he's a devout Catholic.
Oh.
He attends church daily, and his wife.
There's Kathy.
There's Kathy in Happier Days. She was a waitress at that time.
Yeah.